Bingo! I got it.
What?
I won.
That's what you're about to hear. We're going to play bingo, everyone. This episode is coming out on Easter Sunday. He is risen. He's risen indeed, and all that kind of stuff. We are taking the week off. We're treating ourselves to enjoying the long weekend, but we are still bringing you content. Don't you worry, everyone. Yes, we're going to church and reflecting on our sins. But we are bringing you content. We are unlocking this Patreon-only app that we put out last year with the cartoonist Jon Kudelka playing Rusted on Bingo. What's that, Emerald?
That's it. People might have heard of the tea tale. Jon collected all the classic lines that you hear from Labor hacks, particularly in when arguing with Greens members on the internet and on Twitter. And he put them all in a little bingo card so that when you're scrolling through your feed, you can play bingo and go, the Greens voted against the CPRS in 2009, or perfect is the enemy of the good, or whatever, better things aren't possible.
Bob Brown went to Queensland.
All those things. Bob Brown went to Queensland. It's a good chat. It's extremely funny. Jon's a funny guy. It's a good little episode, and we want to give you a taste, just a taste of what's available over on that sweet, sweet Patreon feed.
Yes. Hopefully you enjoy having a listen and a giggle to this during your long weekend. The other thing we want to let you know, we announced this to our patrons, but we are doing a live show, Serious Danger, live on stage, baby.
Live.
It's happening on
Lights,
Sunday.
Camera.
What? Oh.
Action. We're live.
That's what you do when you're filming something.
There's no business like show business.
Jesus Christ. To see that kind of banter live on stage, come on down to the Good Chat Comedy Club in Brisbane on Sunday, May the 21st from 2 p.m. That's when it's kicking off. Me and Emerald live on stage, joined by comedian Geraldine Hickey, who is a legend, and Greens MP for Griffith, Max Chandler-Mather, joining us. It'll be a year anniversary since the 2022 election. We'll be talking about what's in the news. We'll be reflecting on the year that's been. We'll be fucking around. We'll be laughing. It'll be a joy.
Hell yeah. It's going to be so sick. Can't believe it was an accident, by the way, booking this exactly a year on from the federal election.
Yeah.
But I think it's, what's that word? Serendipitous.
Yes. We'll put a link in the show notes. You can buy tickets now. They're just $20. That includes everything, booking fees and GST and stuff. $20 to help us cover the costs and raise a little bit of cash for the show. We would love to see you there. Brisbane.
Yes, please.
Greenslanders. Come along, check out the show notes, and we'll see you on May the 21st. But for now, enjoy this Unlocked Patreon episode with Jon Kudelka.
This means inserting the key and unlocking.
This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice.
Serious danger to Australia.
Hello, dear patrons of Serious Danger. Tom and Emerald back with another special episode just for you. This is Serious Danger, the podcast about Greens politics and the Greens in Australia and green things. It is not an official Greens Party podcast. It is produced by the wonderful Michael the Griffin and made possible with the help of the Green Institute. And yes, this is a real hack special treat for people who like our show, Emerald. We are delighted.
Mike tried to, before we start recording, Mike's like, can you guys try and not be too sarcastic and hackish on this episode? And we were like,
We said, yeah, Michael, we can
we'll
be
try
not sarcastic.
Not.
You fucking loser. No, we love you, Griff. Our very special guest for this episode is National Treasure, tea towel magnate, cartoonist for the Saturday paper and the Hobart Mercury. You know him on Twitter. He's always causing trouble and making people laugh. Jon Kudelka. Hello, sir.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
So lovely to have you. We are going deep into something that you created and have spread on the internet and makes people who are very familiar with the kind of shit that we cover on this show very happy or very angry on a regular basis. And that's the whole point of Twitter, right? To make people's day worse and to trigger them and make
it's been my life's work to enrage people for no particular reason, and this is one of my finest pieces.
It is Rusted on Bingo, okay? The Rusted on Bingo game, which was reproduced on a tea towel. It's often referred to as the tea towel. It was a piece of art that you've created, and I suppose you should start with the basics. What is a Rusted on, Jon Kudelka?
Look, when about a year ago, I think I every time we did a cartoon that was mildly critical of the Labor Party's approach to climate policy, I noticed that I'd get responses on Twitter that were remarkably similar. So, I just tabulated these because one guy was particularly persistent, so he sort of inspired me to keep going, and I just put them all together over a drunken evening and half a bottle of whiskey, and drew into a bingo card. So, I mean, thanks to the Rustodon. The Rustodon is someone who is fanatically devoted to the Labor Party, which is it's a fine institution. If you're going to join a cult, you might as well join one that might run the country. Openly.
Yeah. It's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, most cults don't have much power at all, so you're right. It's a good one to go for.
Well, at least they're honest about it. I mean, the secret ones are the ones you really got to look out for.
Well, yeah. I can't remember if we've spoken about the Moston situation on this podcast before. Like that, I once heard that people refer to Greens hacks as Moston.
Moston.
Oh,
because we don't do Rustodon. I think that was that was when I was kind of just getting more involved with internal party politics, and it was at like a national council meeting, and someone had like a slideshow and they were like, and then, the Mostons, as we like to refer to them. And I was like, I fucking hate it here. And I don't know why I didn't quit at that moment.
I need to leave.
Well, I think any given political party is going to have a little cabal of fanatics. I mean, it's just
it's true.
Politics for you.
Well, this is it, because I was thinking, because I think we use the term hacks a lot on this show, Emerald, often to refer to ourselves, right? And I think there's probably two different interpretations of the word hack. Hack is often someone who's just maybe an Ozpol nerd who's obsessed with Australian politics, who knows all the ins and outs and thinks about it a lot. Okay, that's sort of one way to think about it. But then I suppose when we talk about political hacks, you're really talking about people who are partisan to a fault and will defend the party no matter what, and the party can never do wrong, and you always defend the party no matter what and hold the party line. And I hope, at least on this show, we are open about our partisanship. We like the Greens. We defend the Greens. We agree with the Greens on a majority of issues for the majority of the time, but we have a critique of both the party as an institution and Australian politics more broadly that reduces our level of hackery. Do you think that's
yeah. Well, I think given the theory of cognitive dissonance, that you want to kind of resolve inconsistencies between the world and your perception of the world or reality, it's, I don't know, the first does tend to lead to the latter. So yes, that's why it's important that we keep an eye on ourselves, because if you dedicate your entire life to a particular form of politics or just to Australian politics in general, then you have nothing else. And so if you've dedicated your life to the Labor Party, if you then decide that maybe they're not the party for you, or that things aren't going so well for them, you're left with nothing. So you are kind of compelled by this almost, evolutionary principle to stick with them and defend them no matter what, because without them you also cease to exist.
Well, that's the thing. So I'm not particularly partisan towards anyone.
Yeah, neither are we, John.
Well, when I started when I was 20, one of the first pieces of advice I got from my editor: don't join anyone's political party. Don't join it. Don't get involved with anything. Don't go out to dinner with them. Don't let them buy you drinks. Just don't become friends with these people, because you're gonna, you're the top level predator in a way. You can't be friends with these people. So, I mean, I look partisan towards the Greens because I happen to be a fellow traveller in wanting to have the survival of civilization, over the next generations, mainly because I have children. So yeah, that is it's almost like the Greens are partisan towards me. I'm very keen on not having a environmental collapse over the next my lifetime, the next lifetime, perhaps quite a few generations would be nice. So the reason that for example, we're going through the transition period from the coalition to the Labor Party. Every time they change a government, all your people who loved you, all the people who loved you as a cartoonist, now hate you, because amazingly you're having a pop at the government still. I mean, it's a thing that's I suppose I'm partisan towards taking the piss out of whoever's running the place. So everyone's got their own agenda. That's mine. I suppose this Rustodon Bingo thing was a desperate hope that the next government might be care a little bit more about obvious stuff. Yeah, so that's what this all came from. If you really want a serious answer,
no, sure. And I think what's unique about this too is because, and we'll go through it in a sec. We'll be playing Rusted on Bingo, everybody. Don't worry, it's coming. But the folks at the Labor are in this unique position in which they are progressive and on the left, or at least this is the pitch that they're selling, even though ABC Compass tells us Labor is a centrist party. But, they are a progressive party. So these Rusted on Bingos are excuses for why the party that are the good guys are doing the bad stuff or not doing anything at all about the stuff that they were doing. So you almost wouldn't have a bingo for the coalition. I guess you could if you wanted to, but people who love the coalition aren't trying to bend over backwards in the same way or do the mental gymnastics to justify and not criticize their political party on a bunch of stuff because they're just I don't know, if they're cutting taxes and locking up refugees, then I'm happy that it's all fine.
They're completely unfettered by any need to look like they're doing anything but following their brief. They are losing their best lives, the coalition, basically. They're basically set up to stop anyone getting in government who might actually do anything. I mean, that's basically it.
Yes,
and they were doing it with vigour, and that's the thing. They were doing it with absolute, and they were following their brief. I mean, the problem is that the Labor Party want business as usual, and they have to follow that brief too, which is not their brief, and that's why it looks bad. And they're even worse at it. They're not even wholeheartedly evil.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
They're doing stuff which is obviously against people's interests, and there's this weird thing where the people who cheering on this stuff is obviously against their interests in this idea that at some point this will change, and it can't because it's not like suddenly that there's going to be this magical thing where these positive reinforcements make them do the opposite. And it's like a rat in a Skinner box. Every time they press the lever and the food comes out, they're not going to stop pressing the lever unless you stop the food coming out, which is voting for them. So that's the only sort of conditioning you can do to a political party, unless you're a billionaire, in which you can give them money, which is much more effective, of course, but not
that's right
for most people, unfortunately.
Shame.
The other thing is shouting at them and doing bingo cards and taking the piss, which makes people angry. But I doubt they care that much. None of my cartoons have brought down a government, much to my dismay. I've done at least 15,000 around my career, and not one government has fallen. So,
but John, with your cartoon powers and our podcasting powers, surely,
nothing will still occur. Yeah, better things aren't possible. I believe that's A1.
Yes,
yes. Well, I know.
We'll jump into the game in a sec. A couple of quick questions. Are they a bunch? Did you have to whittle them down to fill up the 5x5 square, or do you feel like there are other excuses out there that you would like to add to the bingo card? Or?
Oh yeah, what was on the cutting floor?
There was an original piece of paper. I literally I got given this marvellous bottle of Tasmanian whiskey for doing a talk for someone, and it was about like minus 10 degrees outside, and we were locked in. Because of COVID, I'm generally going stir crazy and listening to these mad people telling me that white is black, or blue is red or whatever on Twitter, and so I literally just started writing these things down in a large grid, and it was I think it ended up being about a 7x7 grid,
right?
And I can't actually, I don't know where that piece of paper went, but I did it just when I decided, this actually would be extremely hilarious as a tea towel.
Yeah.
Because the sheer banality of it. That's the thing. That's the reason why it works so well as a piece of satire, because it's absolutely banal.
Tea towel.
The idea of a bingo card is absolutely it's hackneyed. It's like it's the sheer sort of mediocrity of it all that makes it funny. It's devastating. You can be incredibly lazy and do this thing, and it's absolutely devastating to rush it on. It's like that Gary Larson when they killed the mammoth with a tiny little arrow, and the guy says we should write that spot down. It's this ridiculous weak spot from something which is so utterly benign. So anyway, I cut out a whole lot of them, or I amalgamated a few. There's quite a lot of little subtleties there that I would have done differently, but it's just a tea towel. So. And the imperfections of it actually make it funnier.
Just a tea towel.
So yeah.
And for people that know who aren't, again, Twitter hacks like us, John will often quote tweet someone who is playing the game by giving you a pushback against a critique of Labor based on one of the arguments that we find on the bingo card, and you get to say D3. And it really saves a lot of time. You really just get to jump to saying, well, this is what this person is doing. We've heard this already. Let's fucking move on with our lives. It's very good.
Yeah, well, I think I said when I put it on for sale that it just stopped. It made interacting with Rustodons fun rather than a soul-sucking pit of existential despair.
That is the gift of it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it also makes it quick. You're in and out. They've deployed their bingo spot. You've acknowledged it exists, and we've moved on to the next one. I mean, they've got like 25 to choose from there, so it's not. It's not.
It should be a kind of amicable thing, right? That it's like, look, you surely must hate doing this as much as we do.
Yeah.
So let's just make it a little bit easier, a little bit more of a fun game. You have to say your little line. We go, yep, you said it. Those were the lines. You remembered them. We move on.
And it doesn't really matter. I don't think anyone's really paying attention at the top end. I mean, in the end, there's thousands and thousands and millions of dollars involved, which no amount of making jokes about bingo is going to change. I mean, you actually have to have some politicians at the top who are willing to show some character and actually push against the status quo, which is a huge thing. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not hard for the Labor Party to do it. It's just I'm saying they have to, or we're buggered. I mean, that's the point of this. It's the horror of it. This little Greek chorus going on behind this ridiculous disaster we are urging on.
Yeah, we're burning.
This little song saying, terrific. It's not at all good what's happening. So, I'm at least trying to make the little choir feel a bit ashamed for themselves, but they don't. They just get angry. So, I think every cartoonist gets to this point, in their career where they realise that nothing matters really. And, they either sort of just start shouting at people randomly on the internet or go insane or,
just start a podcast or something.
Head injury. So,
or you become Michael Mooney.
I'm going the relatively benign way, which is sort of nice.
Yeah.
And making some cash. I believe the tea towels are a very good seller. They're doing all right.
You're not going to get rich selling tea towels.
You
buy the tens of thousands, and I'm not doing that. So everyone wants to do another run of them, but it's just I haven't got the credit card for it at the moment. COVID and all that. So I am running an art gallery during a global pandemic. So if I might do another Kickstarter or a pre-sale thing, and if enough people want one, then I can just cover the costs. Yeah, I'll do it, but probably not. So,
there you go. Man. Okay.
Shall we play some Rustodon bingo, friends?
We should.
We'll try and get 5 in a row if we can. Emerald has letters. I have numbers. We will work them through. Some of these will be very familiar to a Serious Danger audience. Some of them we'll spend a little bit more time on sort of getting out of the hood on. And, we'll see if we can get 5 of these in a row by the courtesy. So imagine as we're pulling out these numbers, this is a Rustodon Labour hack tweeting at you or yelling you at the street as to why Albanese is doing exactly the right thing at all times. Kick us off, Emerald. Go for it.
Oh, okay. So I'll do the letter. Mm-hmm. All right, I have my little bowl of letters.
Mm-hmm.
It is D. So I've got a D. What number do we have?
I got a D5.
Oh, the classic. Bob Brown
this is a great one for this podcast. Bob Brown went to Queensland.
Marvelous.
That is a beautiful way to start.
I was thinking about this literally just before because I was like, haven't heard any chat about how Queensland's so fucking conservative and trying to do progressive politics or climate action in Queensland is what's going to lose everything for everyone for a while.
Didn't that age well?
Oh, my God.
I was thinking we could do a whole episode on the 2019 convoy. That's obviously what this is referring to. And the Stuff convoy. We could really go into that and sort of dig into it. Potentially with, I don't know, some level of critique or some learnings from the experience. I don't know.
Some learnings.
But certainly this is wheeled out. Again, the Labor Party can never fail. It can only be failed. And every time that the Labor Party's ever lost an election, it's because of the Greens. It's because of the Greens vote in 2009 and then also Bob Brown going to Greensland and wearing a T-shirt.
The Greens are simultaneously entirely irrelevant and also the most devastating force in Australian politics. It's quite a complicated idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't waste your vote.
Don't expect you to understand.
And vote for the party that can define the climate issue for 13 years.
Even without being actually the party, just some guy who used to run the party and got together his own thing, but still us.
Oh, we all know Bob still runs the party from deep in his basement in the Tarkine.
Yeah.
So,
Everything goes past him.
Absolutely.
I mean, Richie Di Natale did go though too. We should say.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely like there were greens all over it, but,
Oh, look, that's the thing is that Bob Brown lived long enough and protested long enough about things to realise you can't actually have a protest without getting shouted at for doing the protest rather than the thing you're protesting.
Right.
But that's the thing is if this is the classic case of shooting the messenger. I mean, if we do dig up all that coal and burn it, then we bug it. I mean, there's no argument about that, and yet we're yelling at Bob Brown for pointing that out.
Yes.
I mean, if you point it out in a bit of a insensitive way, then that's just a shame, but it's not the end of civilization as we know it, unlike burning the coal. It's that incredible ability to equate things that are a little bit upsetting with the end of the world. It's not, it actually doesn't work. If you explain that to anyone who's normal, they'll go, what the hell are you talking about when they think about it, as long as you don't have all the mythologizing and the breathlessness which comes from being rusted on. It's you get lost in this Byzantine maze of bullshit and internal machinations which no human being can understand. It's like the entire script of Neighbours all at once, And even there are fewer murders and ridiculous things happening in your neighbours. It's just bizarre, and you're expected to care. The whole point of being in government is that's not our problem. That's a black box. We just want them to do stuff that's good. We don't want to have explanations about why they couldn't do stuff that's good. We don't want them to do stuff that's bad and say, well, I'm sorry, this is because someone said something mean about Sharon in the Labor right branch in New South Wales in 1936. It's not interesting to anyone. It doesn't matter. It's their problem. Our problem is the end of the world. We want them to do their job and fix stuff, do stuff that's good. It's not hard. I mean, they're in charge. It's like when you're a parent. I don't got to go and kick the kid in the face and say, sorry, there are very important reasons of why I did this, and you probably won't understand them now. I can talk you through it. You just do nice stuff. You feed them regularly, It's not hard. It's just, like where we have cats, I feed them every day. They meow at me. I pat them sometimes. I don't do terrible things to them. That's what being in charge is. You're in charge. It's your fault if you bugger it up. So sorry, that's a bit of a rag. You do get pretty annoyed. The tea towel comes from a place of deep and enduring rage. It's so upsetting.
I know we've got one square. Come on, there are many other squares
carry
to
on.
do this.
Sorry, I'm ruining the game. The thing, never let a cartoonist turn up to pub quizzes. Ruin it for everyone.
But we should do a fucking whole episode on this. I even read a book recently that was about like protests that were happening in North Queensland about the road that they wanted to build through the Daintree. Bob Brown, of course, rocked up at one point. But yeah, it was the same fucking narrative that they were bussing up Southerners, professional protesters, even though fundamentally this was a movement that was like started in the area by locals. But because they had people like need to go to fucking work, so that when they wanted to keep up the blockade, they would have to get people in who came from down south and probably didn't have to work. That became the whole narrative, like still the narrative. So yeah, this shit, I mean, I was thinking, I'm like, is the tea towel going to go out of date? Probably not anytime soon. This shit is not new.
We're 6 weeks in and it's still entirely current. The only thing I'd change is I'd add a square saying we've only just started, which is, we've only been in government for 6
we've
weeks.
only been, give us time. Give it time.
That'll be 52 times 3. You can just keep on changing that number. It'll be, we'll be getting up near to the next election and they'll be going, oh, look, we can't do these things because we want to win the next election. And then they win that election scraping, and hopefully they won't. In fact, if they keep doing this, I think they'll be buggered, hopefully, and people won't vote for them and there'll be a hung parliament.
Yeah.
But, the idea is to sneak through again and keep sneaking through. I mean, why wouldn't you if you won? I mean, if your whole idea is to inherit the world and, at the cost of your soul and you don't care, once you've lost your soul, you just keep on inheriting the world. You don't want to lose that. That's the only thing you got out of it. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm not Jesus now.
No,
but
we've got it.
Pull it up. For God's sake, shut me up.
All right, okay. Should we do another square?
Yes,
should we do the next square? Are we going to win? We've got to get a row. We've got to get.
It's going to take a long time.
Let's maybe go for 3. If we get 3 in a row, we'll be fine.
3 in a row, baby.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we win. Oh, we forgot to say, if we don't get bingo, what happens? You know what happens, right? 10 years of climate inaction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
wow.
believe so.
Those are the stakes.
Yeah. Okay, I've got an E.
I've got a 2.
That's my name.
2.
Starts with E. Voters are very stupid.
It's a good one, isn't it? It's basically the idea is that the voters are complete ciphers. There's no critical thinking out there whatsoever.
Yes.
Basically, if you treat someone like an infant, it's amazing how they act like one. So that's an excuse for anything, really.
Low information idiots who are entirely manipulated by whatever Rupert Murdoch wants. Now, Rupert Murdoch is very powerful. We've talked about a lot of the show. Obviously, our media in this country is fucked up. I mean, apart from the Murdoch outlets that you work for, John.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's absolutely one of the most pernicious things in the Australian society. I mean, everyone can see that in the planet.
Yes. B3 as well as also the media, of course. So this perhaps relates to voters are very stupid. But yes. Increasingly, particularly as the print media is collapsing and traditional media is being exposed for being so shit for so long, and people are losing, trust in media institutions for a long period of time. This idea that, whatever Rupert Murdoch wants, he gets, just simply isn't true. And certainly was proved in 2022 when, the Murdoch media went just as hard as they would have done, even if Labor had good policies, and it didn't win because they can't just click their fingers and get everything. Like, there is still a level at which public debate and expressing what you believe in and fighting for what you believe in and doing politics can actually change people's minds and inspire people and affect the way that they vote, right?
But I think this square is also, it's like voters are very stupid and conservative.
Yes.
Well, the thing is that the reason, if as soon as you decide that the voters are very stupid, you won't say anything compelling or interesting to them. So immediately this vacuum, which is filled up by crap. I mean, that's why there's, people go, well, there's nothing there, so I'll go with the headline on the tabloid. That's why, because there's nothing else to go with. There's nothing compelling being told. There's nothing for you at all. As a person, it's all this gobbledygook and crap and sophistry and, just 3D chess, which these people couldn't win a game of noughts and crosses, and they think they're geniuses. I mean, they are not. They are, at best, quite average people. When I'm quite happy with average if it's done with a certain amount of integrity. That would be fine. I think everyone would take that right now. Just basic human integrity. The ability to put on your shoes, wipe your ass, get dressed in the morning by yourself and go to work and just do stuff that's good.
No. They're so much smarter. They have to, that's right. They have to look after their stupid, idiotic, racist working class base that they love.
Yeah, they're not people are not like that. I've met people. I mean, people come into my gallery now all the time.
I've met people too.
Maybe I just attract incredibly nice people, but they're mostly very good people who aren't racist and aren't stupid. And you have a conversation with them, you treat them like people who are kind of the same level of intelligence as you are, and it goes quite well. Rarely do they kind of pull out their Nazi tattoo or decide to invade Poland. It just doesn't happen.
You must just be in the inner city,
Well, I am. To be fair, we are directly in the inner city of Hobart's about like 10 square metres, and I'm in it. But,
you just don't know what it's like. Yeah, you don't know what it's like in real Australia.
The cafe around the corner, if I ring them up, does actually bring me a latte if I ask them nicely. So, yes, that's true. Anyway, I don't know. I tend to think that if you treat you get people act pretty much how you expect them to. If you expect a bit more out of people, they'll give it to you.
Yeah.
So that's that one. It's an excuse for yourself being very stupid. That's what that is. It's projection.
Climate science is a great one of that too, right? The overwhelming, opinion poll after opinion poll showed that Australians overwhelmingly want serious climate action, but they can't deal, or they're too stupid to understand the discrepancy between Labor's policies and what the actual science says.
So it's very complicated.
Yeah, it's very, very, very
should we do another one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm picking a thing. Oh, that's not a real one. C.
C2.
C2.
C2. So close. That's close.
Wow.
Don't let the bare minimum be the enemy of the grossly inadequate.
Yeah, look, I rejigged that aphorism just a little bit for accuracy.
Don't let the best be the enemy of the good, or don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, of course, is the classic
How
phrase.
do we even speak about – I don't think any of us even want to talk about this right now. I don't.
The example here is that I've always felt is you're trying to send an astronaut to the moon, right? And you've got the rocket and it's all set up and they're all got their gear on. They say, look, we haven't put enough petrol in the rocket to actually achieve escape velocity. So you are going to eventually run out of petrol before you escape Earth's gravity and you're going to plummet and die. That's essentially it. And you're saying, but It's a good start. It's not a good start.
It's a good start.
It's not a good start. That's if you're the astronaut, you're thinking this isn't good. This isn't going to work.
Yes.
I mean, that's basically the bare minimum.
They could add more fuel in, maybe halfway or something
You
somehow.
might suddenly discover
find a
some
pit
sort
stop.
of carbon capture from the atmosphere that you can quickly, magically turn into more fuel and keep going. It doesn't work. There's no way of doing it. That's the thing, is that the bare minimum is a good start. Anything beneath the bare minimum is not. It's simple as that. It's not complicated for anyone, that one. It's just people can't believe the audacity of someone trying to actually give you less than is adequate. We've sealed this room up and you are going to die shortly because there's no more oxygen coming in, but we've left you the oxygen in the room. That's the sort of thing they're talking about. It's not good enough. It's upsetting. It's not. That's not a good thing.
Yes.
And be upset by it.
I prefer that journalist slip up. I think it was at the press club thing where Adam Bandt spoke before the election, where he was like, are you going to let the good be the enemy of the bad?
There it is. There it is. That's probably the better wording, to be honest.
Yeah, and of course, anything
you
to the
wouldn't want
left.
that to
Yes, I
happen.
am. You would.
Yes.
Yes.
Very much so.
Might get that translated into Latin and chisel it into stone. Yes, let's do that. Why not?
Yeah.
The Greens are pro-good and anti-bad.
Yeah, you're
That's our
anti-bad.
position.
That's incredibly naive, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything to the left of whatever Labor's arguing for, of course, is dismissed as perfect, of course. So whatever the Labor policy is, then that's the good, and that's the only achievable possible good. Anything to the left of that is dismissed as hippie perfection.
But like I said, we all would settle for mediocre right now. We would absolutely. I would take it. I would take it in a heartbeat. Yeah.
All right, let's go another.
I keep picking out because I didn't want to just have 5 bits of paper in my bowl because, as I explained to Tom, I don't like the number 5. And so I did another bit of paper that just has a little love heart on it, which I think is cute. But somehow I keep picking that one, which...
Everyone needs a bit of love when they're playing Rusted on Bingo.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we've got a B.
B5. Sorry, Emerald. B5. You do not understand the real world, in brackets, student politics. Yes, great. So, of course, almost all, or a huge majority of the Labor Parliamentary Party are made up of people who have not done anything except politics, who all started in student politics, and that's their world. I was always amazed. Particularly during the Abbott years, there were beefs in our federal parliament that date back to Sydney University in the 1970s.
Wow.
That was regularly being brought up. But of course, they're connected with the real people like Andrew Charlton, a multimillionaire who moved from the eastern suburbs of Sydney to Parramatta to become the MP. He's connected with the working class. And the Greens, of course, are post-materialist individualists who don't understand the real world or what real Australians think. Is that a fair summary, John?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, you could have said that, or just the grade 7 debating club. It's the same sort of thing. It's just, there's this incredible idea that if you come up with some sort of insult about the person, what they're saying is invalidated. It's just, and thus my theorem is true, but it never is. The question is always begged. And anyone who's been to uni, and I have, so I'm an elitist apparently, is unable to form an argument that for real people somehow. So I look at that one. Is exactly. There these Byzantine hatreds and feuds and vendettas that go back to the 70s, like you said, that form a lot of the thinking, which is remarkable when you look at it. It's just this, that's the tip of the iceberg is all the mess, and underneath it is the real seething disaster that comes from these personalities, which nobody should have to care about.
The thing about student politics, right, like to spell it out, is that it is just purely a game, that there are no consequences for there are no real consequences for student politics. And that genuinely is the way that major party politicians seem to carry on about politics, that the objective is to win the game and fuck all of the people who are going to starve or die as a result. It's such a bizarre world to me. I did debating in school because I fucking loved arguing.
All right, it's a noble
with people.
profession, by the way.
Yeah. But like, I love debate, but I never connected it with the real world. It was I did my debate, and then I went to uni and I was working. I wasn't paying attention to uni life or whatever, and only kind of after I graduated did I hear about student politics as a thing. And the fact that there were people that were just like spending their time cosplaying politics on campus, so bizarre to me.
Well,
and that they then turn that into a real political career because there's some sort of connection. Fucking hell.
Yeah, I did a science degree, so obviously I didn't have basically time for student politics, so I was actually going to lectures and things.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise how that was you thought it was a bit of a joke because you'd kind of come to the pub and people would be talking about the stuff that had been going on, and you think, oh, they must be kidding. But these incredibly the smaller the prize, the bigger the fight. It's amazing, and it seems to be huge. Much ado about nothing at all times, and the important things just get sort of pushed under a bus without a moment's thought. Without a moment's thought of who's going under the bus and what that's going to do to the person under the bus and what that's going to do to the bus driver and everyone on the bus and all the people who are related to all these people. That's someone else's problem somehow, but they've won the argument because the person went under the bus. So, bugger. So, that's the thing. You're a student, and back in those days, even in the 90s, being a student was a pretty good life. So you did have to work a bit, but, the hex there was a little bit, but it wasn't like, you didn't have to hand over a kidney. Like now. So different thing.
All right, let's maybe move through a few in a row. Yeah, let's sort of.
A few in a. Oh, let's try and get a few in a row.
Oh God.
Oh, sorry. What were we doing?
Let's try and
move through.
Like
get a
a quick fire round.
Tom's like, okay, stop talking now.
Yeah.
I got a D. That's good. We had a D before.
We had a D. Well, that is 2 in a row. The D4 is the ETS apparently never happened. Very relevant to the current debate at the moment.
Yes.
You've got a really little like CPRS cluster here in the middle of
the whole
board.
Well, it's all very CPRS-y, isn't it?
The whole bingo card was pegged on the central square, which is C3, which is the Greens didn't vote for the CPRS in 2009, which is the root cause of every single bad thing that's happened since the dawn of time, apparently. Actually, 2009 is in fact the Big Bang. So all time originated that point. Everything that's bad happened from there backwards. There were tachyons in this event. It actually it put ripples backwards. It started the Second World War. Like, Archduke Ferdinand was shot because of the Greens. Didn't vote for the CPRS in 2009. It's remarkable all these terrible things that happened. So
amazing.
But anyway, the ETS never happened as a corollary of that, whereas you've got these 10 years of inaction on climate change, apart from that little bit where the Gillard actually managed to sit down and talk with the Greens and put together the ETS, which worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got canned by Tony Abbott, who would have canned anything. Tony Abbott was basically just pure aqua regia. Anything that was there was gone. It was good. He was the death of anything that was good in life.
Yeah. So, but this party that, is always like, why don't you spend more time attacking the Tories? That's what you should be doing. Isn't that kind of an opportunity to talk about the fact that your apparent opposition, the Tories, the Liberal National Coalition, tore down good legislation that your government introduced? Yes. Like, there's such a clear enemy there, and yet for some reason, I don't know if maybe the ETS is genuinely they genuinely don't remember that it happened because this kind of period of the Labor Party is erased from their collective consciousness out of, I don't know, some sort of trauma blocking. Who knows? Yeah. Who can say?
Well, I mean, there's an incredible graph by Greg Jericho, that comes up occasionally where there's the bit where it's, the emissions are going up and then ETS starts, emissions are going down. I mean, nobody likes graphs, obviously, but this graph was a good one. I mean, this has validated Greg Jericho's entire career because he come up with a graph that people like because it shows the thing so obviously. And then, our good old mate got rid of it and up she went again. I mean, it was such an obvious fix. The fix was in. And, it's just sad. It was tragic. I mean, apparently we can't go back and have we've done all the work to have this ETS, which works, and we can't go back and get it again because apparently the coalition got rid of it, and somehow what the coalition did is sacrosanct. The thing is, everyone goes, well, that was a terrible thing that happened. Well, why don't we just bloody well reverse it? All the work's done. Just flick the switch. Tell people, show them the graph. Say, the voters aren't question, but here's the graph. This is you possibly not dying, the end of civilization not happening when it goes down. Oh, here it's going up again. The ETS is this bit, which is good. People will get that. They will.
No, they're so stupid. Voters are so stupid.
That's where you see I don't understand student politics, the real world. So,
exactly.
Round and round she goes.
Yeah.
I have this incredible optimism that people aren't actually as stupid as people who in politics are. So I don't know. I think that people will get that, but they won't.
E2, John. E2. That's what I say. E2.
Oh, yes.
I've got a C.
C1. Oh, that's also we've had C2. C1 is good. C1 is the best way to oppose bad legislation is to vote for it.
Yes, like with the religious discrimination bill.
Yes, sirree. That's the way to get it done. The refugee policies, the infrastructure that we've set up around Fortress Australia,
tax cuts.
Tax cuts is a classic one as well.
It's coming up.
Yep.
We're about to have an austerity budget, and we're going to be giving tax cuts to people on 200,000. We've flattened the tax system. It's amazing. And how do you explain that to people? Sorry, the people on JobSeeker have to live under the poverty line, and yet we're given a tax cut to the top end. That's confusing. That is confusing.
We inherited lots of debt, John, so it's,
I suppose it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Lots of debt. The poor should have to pay for it.
I did pick up a D again.
Oh, I've got D5 again, which we've already had.
Oh, okay.
Only one trip to Queensland.
Sorry, yeah. I picked it up again. Sorry.
He's never going back. Well, maybe this is prophetic. Maybe he's going back to Queensland. He's going to ruin it again for him.
I got D4
Albo, you're in trouble, mate. Bob's going to Queensland.
Right. Something else.
Sharpen your knives, Bill Shorten. It's time. Sorry, it's not funny. That's a terrible thing. Let's not have that happen. It would be very funny, though, wouldn't it?
You put out D, did you say?
I see.
Let's say you put out a D, shall we? D2 is wedge, and that's 3 in a row, which we can keep going if we like.
Victory.
But I think that's a good one.
Oh,
wedge is a classic.
We did it. We saved the world.
We have discussed some wedge politics before on the show.
We have.
How do you see wedge? What do people just tweet wedge at you in all caps, John, or how does wedge play out on the internet?
The wedge is code for we have to actually take a position on something. So
yes,
by actually standing up for a principle, you are immediately wedged. People are upset by the idea that you actually will state a principle and stand by it.
And that again is not their fault. It's someone else being mean and wedging them.
Yeah, there's winners and losers when you take a wedge. I mean, it's true that if you say something is the case, then there are going to be people who are going to be upset by it. Which is it sort of goes over to the E4. That's usually combined with an E4, which is it's vital to avoid upsetting people who never vote for us. You see, that's the wedge. It's and the logic of it is baffling, but apparently it makes sense. You can't ever actually you can't ever stand on principle because people might get used to it and start wanting it all the time, I suppose. I don't know. I know what that one is.
Exactly.
The wedge is an all-purpose. We're not doing that because it's too hard. It's a too hard basket.
Too hard. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Stop wedging us between our actual position and the good thing. Like, stop trying to make us choose between those two things.
Imagine these guys trying to order a beer when there's like more than one on tap. Man, don't wedge me. I can't. I know I'm not gonna. You choose. Don't wedge me. Just pick a beer. Not that one. You know.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a couple more. B1. B1. The slightest criticism of Labor will result in eternal Tory rule, and you love it.
Hey, you love it.
Yeah, that's you two right here, right now. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
Stop bashing Labor. That's a big criticism of this podcast, actually.
Yes.
Stop.
They do say that.
I mean, it is. We're bashing the hell out of them today. I mean, it's brutal. It's savage. I couldn't agree more.
But but that somehow will result in Tory rule. I mean, I just don't think it works that way, unfortunately.
Well, again, it's what you're doing is being simultaneously completely irrelevant and also all powerful. It's that weird sort of hysteresis between no power and all power. It's so that's the thing is you can't ever actually jump off the binary because all the shades of grey will make people's heads explode because voters are very stupid, as it's stated in E2. You can't actually have a discussion about anything ever because the wedge in the media, D2, B3. It's incredible. You can have the entire conversation just in Cartesian grid references, essentially. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this somehow also plays into like I think there's one in here, right, that's about that preferences don't exist, or just the general suite of it's impossible to vote for and elect the Greens kind of category, because they're like somehow, if you criticize conservative politics, people will vote conservative because it's impossible that they might actually vote progressive as a result of that. Like we, especially, in seats, when the Greens are running against Labor, and particularly in Queensland when we are criticising a Labor government, I guess in Victoria, et cetera, as well. And sometimes I have a theory, and no real evidence to back this up, but that actually you end up getting more voters for the Greens from both sides when you criticise Labor, because not only do you get Labor voters to go, oh, Labor's a bit shit, aren't they? And they're not actually a progressive party, so maybe I'll vote for the progressive party. But you get the Liberals who are stuck on the Labor and the Greens are the same thing, realising that the Greens also have a different vision that they're articulating against Labor, and they are a party that they could consider voting for. So in the end, you end up winning fucking 2 seats off Liberal MPs and 1 off Labor, and somehow doesn't result in eternal Tory rule.
Yeah, it's funny how that happens. I mean, the thing is that all these things where they say better things aren't possible, we can't do them because the Greens have the balance in the Senate. It's I guarantee that the Greens will not argue against passing a higher carbon reduction target for 2030. They will not argue against giving more money to unemployed people for job seeker. They won't argue against any of these things. So no. I think you'll find that in fact they would be enthusiastic if that came up. That's the thing, is that in fact I doubt that the Greens would ever would be all that keen on anything that the coalition were keen on, really. In all honesty, I can't see it. That's the weird part. If basically they want better things to happen, and that might be deeply naive, but I don't think it's a valid argument to say that.
I also like the idea that it's not attacking the criticisms that we're making of Labor. Like, the criticisms may be true, but the problem is the Greens should shut up rather than Labor shouldn't do those bad things. I mean, again, the Andrews government in Victoria, there were a bunch of problems with them, but they're a far more progressive version of Labor Party than in other parts of the country. And, by all polling, they're going to be doing quite well at this election. Again, like the way that Labor has dominated Victorian state politics is by being better, and it does make it a lot harder for the Greens to campaign against them. Like that's just the truth. I still prefer the Greens. The Greens have better policies in my view, but the way that the Andrews government responds to criticisms from their left is not by getting angry at the people on the left. It's often by actually having better policies on a whole bunch of fronts. Well,
I think the only reason people criticise the Labor Party, I think people obviously, I mean, the coalition were incredible for a cartoonist because you just slam them every day because they you can just line the cannons up and just, broadside them every time. But the reason that you criticise Labor is it's because of, the Pandora's box is open. There is hope. Hope is in the world. You still think that Labor might just come around someday, even against all odds and against all. You think they might just listen occasionally, because they did with Gillard, and that's why you criticise. You think, my God, you might actually pull this off. You wouldn't even bother criticising the Libs because they were never, ever, under any circumstances, ever going to do anything that wasn't completely inimical to human life. I mean, they quite clearly wanted. They just hated everyone who wasn't them, and even then they hated each other and they hated themselves too. You can kind of tell. I mean, they're just deeply unpleasant people. And generally, I mean, the stuff they did just doesn't make any sense unless you consider them to be something terribly wrong inside their heads. So, that's the thing, is I think criticism of Labor means people still care, which they should be happy about that.
Yeah, I still think that maybe there's a chance.
Fooled me 5 million times, shame on me. But here we are, we're still doing it.
How many more draws do we have?
Let's do one more draw, and then there were one or two. If we don't get to them, I wouldn't mind just giving them a shout out too, because I think they're funny and cool. We don't have to go too deep. Right. What do you got?
I've got D again.
Oh my God!
I must like this.
You're obsessed.
My little hands
D.
like this bit of paper.
I actually dedicated column D to Sean. He was I had to mute him, but I did actually on the original one. I did say Sean's column, because he gave me all of these in kind of like short order. He was very persistent. He's one of the reasons the bingo card actually happened as a tea-towel. I wouldn't have bothered otherwise, but he was so persistent. So thanks, Sean.
Not Sean Crow, no.
I can't remember. I wouldn't name names. I just remember it was Sean.
I wouldn't name names. It's just Sean.
Sean knows who he is.
What do you got?
Oh, should I draw again?
Oh, well, we can do D3. I've got D3. Oh, that's actually 4 in a row, so that's fucking great. And
Yeah,
D3 is really good. D3 is, we may be terrible, but look at the alternative. Again, yes, this is as good as it gets, everybody. We can't get any better. We are marginally better than the other guys on some fronts. On some fronts, we have exactly the same policies, by the way. But on a few things, we are a little bit better. Therefore, that's good enough.
This is where I noticed on the Reddit thread of the Rusted on Bingo, one of the comments is like,
right.
yeah, there is. Yeah.
Oh, I hate to think you're not looking at
that. Well, one of the comments was like, but a lot of these are actually true, which like misses the point, right? Because that's the thing. It's the fact that you're saying them all the fucking time. It's like, well, yeah, the Greens didn't vote for the CPRS in 2009. And like, yes, you may be terrible, but also look at the alternative. But that's not the point of the bingo card, right?
I was actually going to say, just what you were saying, I was going to say, look, that in every respect, or not almost every respect, Labor is immensely superior to the Liberal Party. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you've actually got people who do look like people who are doing stuff that sometimes makes sense, or at least they can make an argument that makes it sound reasonable. But it's the stuff they do still, it's only in comparison to the worst government, that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
They're not a yardstick you should use. And yes, all these things are true, but the point is that the excuses don't matter when you're in government because it's still,
Your Honour, this other guy killed 4 people.
it's 2055. The last 2 humans on on a rock in what used to be Antarctica, and one guy says the other ones, well, the Greens didn't vote for the CPRS in 2009. That doesn't make the extinction of the species any easier to bear.
Yes.
Even
all
though
these
it may be
excuses
true.
are conflated with reality. They're not. That's the thing. They're used as causes where they're not. They're more effects, or they're just incidentals.
They're completely unrelated to the question is the thing.
The whole mess that Labor Party are in was entirely because they got rid of Rudd, and then Rudd decided he was going to burn the house down and come back. That's why it happened. Had nothing to do with the Greens. The Greens not voting for the CPRS in 2009 was a symptom of Kevin Rudd. I mean, it was. It's anyone who knows anything about it, and I was a political cartoonist doing about 12 cartoons a week during that period, and it was quite obvious that the problem was Kevin Rudd wouldn't negotiate, wouldn't talk, and had a legislation that was actually doing the opposite of what it was meant to do what it said on the box. I mean, that was obvious to anyone who really had a look at it. I mean, the mythologising about what happened is just embarrassing. I mean, I know they're little fables to make excuses around the fireside, around the campfire when society's broken down. That's just why everything's gone to hell. But they're not the case. I mean, they're not. None of these things matter. That's the thing. These things can be true, but it doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
Yes.
You've still got to.
Yes.
Government is hard. Being in charge is difficult. Sorry. Yes, there are problems here. Too bad. Carry on.
Yeah.
Do better. Do things that are good. Don't do things that are bad. This is an easy one. That's the easy part.
Yeah.
So, yes, I've said that before, I know, but it keeps coming up.
Very quickly, I'm going to give a shout out to a few of them. We'll probably finish up, I reckon, but all great. A2, we tried having a policy before and people didn't like it. Big fan of that. A4, tree Tories, but at the same time, the left wing. Very good.
Too left wing
for tree Tories. Running a candidate against a Labor incumbent is anti-democratic. I love that one too. That's really
classic.
Good. Labor deserves certain seats. This one's great. If you think it's so terrible, you should join.
Question mark.
I get that a lot. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Join the Labor Party and change it from the inside.
Yeah, if you hate it so much and disagree with everything it stands for, then why don't you join?
Well, 2 words, Peter Garrett.
Peter Garrett.
Yeah.
Got to get him on sometime.
An object lesson.
E3, the centre, way over here on the right. Of course, the sensible centre, forever moving.
Yeah, sensible centre.
Actually turns out to be right wing. And you also got real Australians there as well, which sort of relates to, I suppose, the real world kind of thing. But
Yeah, the real racist, conservative
Australians. Who are
Australians.
also E2 apparently very stupid. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yes, exactly.
That's a nice little. I put them far apart so you could kind of, just have each a little bit of that, and because that does permeate the whole thing. This idea that these people are geniuses when they clearly aren't.
Yes.
So they're not. much more intelligent than anyone, as far as I can tell.
We stand in front of the Australian flag proudly because each star on the flag represents an IQ point of the average Australian living outside the cities.
I believe in the average Australian. I think the average Australian is kind of about my intelligence, and that's fine, except most of them are more useful because they're not political cartoonists. So give them a chance to prove it.
But also breaks down when, increasingly, again, opinion poll after opinion poll after opinion poll illustrates that the Australian public is further to the left than our political class. And
very much so.
The Lowy climate poll last year was really interesting. It had 60% support for opposing all new coal mines. Okay, now, of course, this current Labor government will present anyone, particularly the Greens, who are saying we can't have any more fossil fuel projects, as being ridiculous, as being unreasonable, as being way out of step with the rest of Australia, when that's just not the case whatsoever. And all they can point to is the federal election result, which they interpret to mean that the Australian public are just absolutely invested and would be absolutely heartbroken if they were to raise their climate ambitions, even though it's not in line with the science.
Yeah, people be rioting in the streets if they did a little bit more to save
them.
That
kind of Overton window thing, which I know it's terrible to use a term like that, but it is because the people in charge are talking about this very narrow band of stuff. Then we genuinely believe that they must be rational and they must not be taking money from the donors, because who would do that really? Yes. Most normal people wouldn't. And you think, there must be something in it, even though I want them to stop digging up coal, because apparently that will kill us all. They must have a plan. I mean, they don't. Their plan is to get elected next time and keep doing it. And that's the thing. They're not thinking ahead. There doesn't seem to be any long-term plan apart from keeping on doing this, which is really quite depressing when you think about it. I mean,
it's very bad.
It's really, it breaks your heart. You walk past a primary school and see these kids sort of having a lovely time, and
oh my God, yeah,
screaming and laughing. I mean, it's the screaming is not going to be so nice in 30 years' time when everything's going to hell all the time. I mean, it really isn't. We've been warned. I mean, I did science in the 90s, and we talked about climate change. It wasn't something we debated. It was something which is here is how carbon dioxide absorbs and emits infrared radiation, acts like a blanket. I mean, it's simple science. There's no argument about it.
Yes,
There's nothing
but
to talk about. Apart from
we accept the science that fossil fuels dug up here but burned overseas don't count, because what a shame I ran out of space.
Yes, E5. I know. It's like when you're on a diet, you have dessert. It doesn't count. I mean, it does. It's
different part of the stomach.
It all counts. Yeah. It doesn't stay in the ground. If it comes up, it gets burned. It's got to work its way down into the ground again, and that takes a while. Carbon dioxide persists in the atmosphere. It's not difficult. None of this is complicated. It's not. I mean, when you drill right down, it is, and the effects are obviously chaotic. So you got those effects are difficult, but the guts of it is if you keep on pushing an ecosystem with one thing all the time, eventually something's going to break. I mean, it's incredibly resilient until it's not. And that, as a scientist, I've seen it happen when things go to hell. They go to hell really unpleasantly, and it's bang, 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 and it all falls down at once, and people really won't like that. And they'll be going, hell, why wasn't I told? And it'll be too fucking late. Sorry for the swear word, but it will be. Yeah. And that's
you're not allowed to swear on this podcast. Did we not say? Yeah.
I try not to, but I do a lot these days. Yeah, that's the thing. It is the real effects. I mean, it's sort of funny, but it's not. And I don't know who we're waiting for to save us, but we wish it was. I think the Labor Party could, and I wish they would. That's simple as that. They must have. Some
Give
of them
it time.
Must have kids. Some of them must
Give it
care.
time, John.
Yeah.
Yes. Once, yes. In the 2028 election, that's they're playing long games. Albanese's thinking 3 steps ahead, man.
Yeah. You couldn't quite understand.
I mean, think of that, and thank you, John. This has been fantastic. Thank you for bringing the bingo card into our lives and for us playing. We did technically get D2 through D5, so that's a row. We've avoided another.
So we averted 10 years of climate inaction. That's good.
We've done it.
Good. Okay.
But I suppose, where do you see the Labor Greens thing going? We're recording this at a time in which all this stuff is painfully relevant. It's all being brought up, and the two parties are squaring off as we go into a parliamentary sitting session. Talk about, the Labor's emission reductions targets and whether or not Greens will support it. I don't know. As the major party vote is in structural decline election after election, the Labor Party seems to be in denial about that fact and sees no future in which they would have to, seriously, on a long-term basis, govern in coalition with the Greens or whatever. I don't know. Where do you see it all going? How is this going to play out?
Oh, Cross, I don't make predictions, but I hope that this is all an ambit claim and they are planning to negotiate.
Yeah.
And I hope that there are some grown up and sensible heads in the negotiations, and hopefully they can use the Greens as cover to do more than they've said they would. I mean, they must. There must be people there who care, and they must. It's not like this is new. There must be people who give a damn. So hopefully they'll come to the fore. That's my hope. And I still believe that people are generally rational. I think they might. And wouldn't that be great? So it won't be enough.
That would be nice.
And that will be. If it starts going in the right direction, then that'll be great, and I'll feel a bit better about it, though there'll be still a feeling of impending doom. And maybe next time around, that people will start having a bit of goodwill and not be bad faith actors, and it'll realise that it has to happen. I mean, there's flooding and fires and stuff. I mean, people are getting the idea. So, yeah, I think I am still, even though I'm being pessimistic for comic effect, I still believe that we can fix it. There's still things that can be done. It will be unpleasant, but I think it can be fixed, because if you don't, what's the point? I mean, why am I even talking to you if I don't believe it can be fixed?
Yeah. No, that's it.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a bit too real, but that's what I really think.
Yeah. No, look, Mike, we're being earnest.
That was my one moment of earnestness in my entire career.
Yeah.
Labour can fix it. Oh, yeah. Well, whatever will happen, I think one thing we can be sure is that there will be more Rusted on Bingo. You will be able to play along throughout the debate in the coming months and years ahead. And so you can go to kudelka.com.au, you can Google search, and potentially there might be some tea towels with Rusted on Bingo for you to purchase in the future if Jon Kudelka gets overwhelming public support for that. Kudelka.com.au, check out Jon's work. If you're in Hobart, go along to his little gallery in Salamanca. It's delightful. And Jon, thank you so much for giving us so much time and going through this Rusted on Bingo. We appreciate it very much.
Oh, most welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks
for all the joy.
Thanks for supporting us patrons, of course. You already support us on Patreon, which makes you very cool.
Yeah.
Please tell your friends. More support for the show means we can do more bonus content like this and grow Serious Danger and continue the revolution. And there'll be no more need for any more Rusted on Bingo. We will see you next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Serious Danger Australia.